It's 12 noon on Wednesday, which means it's time for this week's episode of Ask the Instructor. We've got a great episode for you today, so make sure you tune in, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. I'm John Chrismo. You're watching Ask the Instructor.
You are watching
Ask the Instructor. Every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Time. I'm John Chrismo. You're watching Ask the Instructor. Hey, welcome back. 12 noon Wednesday means it's time for this week's episode of Ask the Instructor. I'm John Chrismo, and this show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. If you're thinking about starting or enhancing your real estate career, make sure you give us a call, or you can even text us. The phone number is 813-928-0106. Again, 813-928-0106. You'll see that laid out very nicely below. We've got advisors standing by to answer any questions you have and assist you in any way that they can. If you prefer to go on our website, which I definitely recommend you check out, make sure you go to tampaschool.com. It's tampaschool.com, or just Google us. You'll find all of our hundreds of 5-star reviews on there, and you'll be easily able to get to our website. And if you're looking for a recommended strategy to help you pass your exams on the first try, make sure you visit passfirsttry.com. Passfirsttry.com's got a recommended strategy to help you pass your class and state exams on the first try. We've got a lot of great tools to really help assist you with that, and we're pretty confident with that claim. So what we're talking about today is comps. Mainly, let's see if we get this here without too much glare for you guys. Yeah, there we go. So comps. If you've watched anything, even just like 5 minutes on HGTV or any of these stations that have these like home improvement shows and whatnot, you've probably heard about comps before. And maybe you've been involved somehow in real estate. These are a real thing in real estate, and they're very important to the real estate sales process. That's why you hear about them all the time on these various shows. You learn about comps in the pre-licensing course, whether you're taking it through our classroom courses or our online courses. We talk about comps and coming up with the value of the property, and that's one of the huge things, because there's a lot of things in the course that you're not going to use every day in your normal course of real estate, depending on the field it is that you're in. You'll probably see most of the stuff across your career at some point, but coming up with value, understanding comps, the comparable homes when you're trying to determine value of a property is huge. That's something you're probably going to be dealing with every single day, at least for a busy real estate agent that's coming up with values for properties every single day. And it's important at the very least to understand what these comps are and how this plays into it. Because yes, there's a lot of automated methods out there to find the value of the home. Now, with these automated methods, they call them AVMs. Automated valuation models. So automated valuation models, this is basically where the different companies such as Zillow, Realtor.com, there's some built into the MLS system. Realist has got a really kind of neat one in there. They all have these different algorithms. And what they're doing is they're pulling information from the public records. Not only the bedrooms, the bathrooms, the garage, the square footage, the effective age, other things such as the year built, the type of construction. The list goes on and on. Anything that's available in the public records, these valuation models are typically trying to use that information to understand the properties that you're looking at. Now, the benefit to a real estate professional is really you don't even need to go in the public records at all. You can just show up at the house and find out most of the information that's here. And you're usually able to find it in a much more accurate way. The square footage isn't always correct. There might be additions made onto the property that aren't showing up in the public records. There might be a pool that's being classified as a spa. All kinds of different things like that could totally skew the number that these automated valuation methods. The most common one that you'll hear people talk about is the Zestimate. And this Zestimate one, this is one, if you talk to any realtor, they'll discredit it. Whether they love or hate Zillow, probably don't have anything say about a Zestimate. Maybe it could be correct. Maybe it gets lucky. Maybe it gets it right every now and then. But with this type of information, it also depends on what the goals are of the seller of the property, or if we're trying to look at this from the buyer's angle, what their goal is on this and what the value is based on their particular scenario, because that could change as well. So the moral of the story, the point I'm trying to make here is these automated valuation methods are good for quick, easy, dirty valuations of a property. They're not to be relied on. You don't want to rely solely on an automated valuation model. It's good to look at first glance, say, okay, that's what they say here, and maybe in this area Zillow tends to be this much under or this much over of the prices in the home. So that will already give you a good idea of, okay, how this is what Zillow says it is. Okay, let's get a look at this and see what we can do here. But now, even with what these automated valuation models are doing, same thing you'd be doing, but just in a more precise, more manual type of method, is they're pulling the comps. So what the comps, and what this is short for, is comparable sale. You see why we call them comps rather than comparable sales, because comparable sales, it's kind of a mouthful. It's a lot easier to say comps, and if you say comps, people resonate with that. Again, they mention it all the time on these home improvement shows and things like that. Whereas comparable sale, it makes a little bit more sense when you're thinking about and trying to find the value of a property, but comps, exact same thing. So that's what a comp is. It's a comparable sale. So let's say we've got this little street here. We've got this nice little street. We've got a couple homes on this block. And let's say that this home is what we're trying to find the value of. So that's our what's called subject property. Very important that you know that term. Subject and comparable, very likely to see those terms on your exam if you're trying to get your real estate license. Again, check out passfirsttry.com. Had to throw the quick little plug in there. But subject and comparable, not only used in the real world, but also on your exam. The subject is what you're trying to find the value to. The comparables are what you're comparing to the subject. You're using these other home sales. So let's say the home next door in this neighborhood sold for... And usually you're looking at a wider geographic area with this because you want recent data. And let's say this home next door sold 1 year ago. So fairly recent. We probably could find better data, but that's still a pretty good indicator. Let's say it sold for $350,000. So we've got $350,000 here. Let's say the home on the other side, and now this would be a real easy neighborhood to find the value with. Let's say this one sold 6 months ago, and let's say this one sold for $375,000. Now, unless our subject property is significantly different, and now this is a little bit more just real world kind of nitty gritty, especially when we have a really easy, this is real teed up for us, not much work we have to do on our part right here. You could already tell that this home value is, somewhere between $350,000 and $375,000, unless it's significantly different, significantly better, or significantly inferior to these other two properties that are right next door to it that sold fairly recently. So that's already a really quick, easy way to kind of get an idea of where that value may be. And that's a very kind of basic way of looking at that. And like I said, this is a very simple scenario because we're not factoring in any differences between these properties here. And if there's not differences between the property, if you have recent data, and even this is kind of pushing it for that word recent data, but being that it's so close, we definitely want to consider that because it's right next door to our property. But this is the only time you're looking at just what the house sold for in that area and just saying, okay, yeah, $350,000, that's what our home will sell for. Now, what if this home over here is some monstrosity home that's, like 10 bedrooms and it's got a swimming pool and so on and so forth, and this home here is just a modest 3-bedroom home, 2 baths. That would obviously skew this data a little bit here. That would make it so that wouldn't be a good indicator of the value. And that's where it comes into where you're not just looking at what the price of the home sold for in the neighborhood. That's a good start, absolutely, because if the homes are at least similar, they don't have to be identical, but if they're similar, that's going to give you a good kind of pulse on what the neighborhood's like. It'll, especially for how many homes are selling in the neighborhood, how many homes are in the recent sales. That'll give you an idea of how fast homes are selling. So this is absolutely data that you do want to look at, but when you're trying to find a more precise estimate of value here, or when you have more significant differences between the properties, that's where you have to do what's called an adjustment, where you're basically either pushing up or pushing down these values to make them a better indicator of our subject property. The subject property, again, is what we're looking for. We don't know what the value is. Value is different than the price paid, different than the cost the seller acquired the property for. The value is how much the property is worth. So we could be finding the value whether we're dealing with the seller. You're primarily going to be doing this for the seller, because pretty much any listing appointment that you go on, there's going to be that inevitable question of how much do you think this home is worth? How much do you think it'll sell for? That type of stuff. So you're going to get that question. That's typically where you do something like this. Or if you're just going to be an average agent, you'll pull out your report from Realist and say, this is what the computer says it's worth. This is what we could sell it for. And that works, but I mean, what value are you bringing to the table when you're basically just saying, yeah, my computer, my fancy realtor program told me this is what the home is worth, and so that's what we're going to go for. No, they're like, okay, yeah, this guy's just going on the computer. I could go on Zestimate, and the Zestimate says it's this much more. And Zillow's way bigger than this realtor, so this guy doesn't even know what he's talking about. That's why you want to understand this process. You want to understand how these adjustments are made, even if you're not manually doing the calculations, that you could explain why the value is what it is, and not just the simple answer of this is what the computer says it's worth, because that's going to discredit you like that. Done for. You say that's what the computer says, they'll base it. Why don't you just show yourself out at that point, because you basically lost all credibility, unless you're going to be some sort of discount real estate agent. You're going to be working, I'm going to charge you the lowest commission in the area. You could do that. You could go about that. You probably get some business that way. But if you really want to command a higher value, if you really want to charge a higher commission, you have to show the value in that. And understanding the appropriate price to sell the property for is absolutely crucial. Very important to really showing that you're a valuable asset to the sale of their property. Now, when we come back after this break, we're going to get into actually solving out a couple examples. We're going to look at this in a very simplistic way, just looking at one attribute of the property that's going to be different across these different properties, so you guys start to understand this concept a little bit better, and then we're going to build into something a little bit more complex, maybe something a little bit more real world that you're going to be working with. I'm John Chrismo. You're watching Ask the Instructor. This is a live show, so send in your comments. Anything you guys don't understand or you have questions about, put it in the comments, or maybe something you want me to talk about in here, throw that in there. I've got the comments loaded up. Send that in while we're on the commercial break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be back in about 2 minutes. I'm John Chrismo. You're watching Ask the Instructor.
Have you been thinking about starting a career in real estate? Enjoy an entrepreneurial lifestyle that allows for schedule flexibility with unlimited income potential. In real estate, the sky is the limit, and what you put in is what you get out. Learn more about a career in real estate at tampaschool.com. Do you wish you could make your own schedule? A career in real estate allows for unimaginable schedule flexibility. Whether you're just looking to make some extra cash in your spare time or become the next top real estate agent, a career in real estate allows you to call the shots. Find out more about a career in real estate at tampaschool.com. Do you want to incorporate studying for your real estate exams into your busy schedule? Now you can review the key topics you need to know to pass your class and state exams with our MP3 audio review. Simply pop in your headphones or connect to your car to reinforce crucial information while you exercise or drive. Listen to the first unit for free at mp3audioreview.com. That's mp3audioreview.com. Does your current career allow for unlimited income potential? With a career in real estate, the sky is the limit. What you put in is what you get out. Find out more about how you can tap into the unlimited income potential of a career in real estate at tampaschool.com.
Hey, if you're liking the show today, which I'm sure you are, make sure you hit like, subscribe, share it with your friends and family. Our goal is to help you better understand the real estate industry, and I hope we're accomplishing that. Thanks for tuning in today, and remember to leave your comments in the comment section below.
You are watching
Ask the Instructor. Every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Time. I'm John Chrismo. You're watching Ask the Instructor. Hey, welcome back to this week's episode of Ask the Instructor. I'm John Chrismo, and this show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. Real quick little spiel here, go to tampaschool.com to find out more, or better yet, give us a call, 813-928-0106, or if you're trying to pass your exam on the first try, check out our recommended strategy to do just that at passfirsttry.com. Boom, done with. Let's get back into comps, because I know that's what you guys are tuning in for today. And the reason why I know this is what you're tuning in for, even if you're an experienced real estate professional, you know how important comps are and understanding how to come up with an accurate value of a property within a particular neighborhood. So we talked about just this idea of just looking at what the home sold for, and that's the most basic way we could really look at this whatsoever, and that really has the assumption that these homes that are next to our subject property or within the general vicinity of our subject property aren't really that different at all, or nothing different that causes a difference in the value, and also that the market hasn't changed in the last year. That's really the only time we would kind of really just look at the sales and use that to come up with a number for our subject property. So the way I'm going to lay this out here, this is the same way that we discussed this in the actual pre-licensing course, and it's really good for understanding the core fundamentals of the comparable sales approach and understanding how comps influence the actual sales of a property. Now, this is an oversimplification again, but it's now where we're doing some adjustments where the homes are not the same. So I'm going to draw out a quick little number line here where we've got lots of dollar signs, expensive, $1 sign. So the homes down here don't cost that much, don't have a high value. The homes up here have a high value. That's kind of our number scale here. And the numbers we're going to be coming up with are going to be the comps that we're going to be throwing in here. So let's say we have a subject property in this neighborhood. And this subject property, we know it's not the most expensive home in the neighborhood, but it's not the cheapest home in the neighborhood. And our basic understanding of this neighborhood here tells us that. So we've got our subject property. Now, our subject property, this is what we're trying to find the value for. We do not know the value. We're not going to be doing anything to the subject property's value because we don't know what it is. That's what we're trying to find. This is what we're solving for. The subject is what you solve for. They both start with S, so that'll help you remember that. Now, let's say that this subject property has 3 bedrooms. So 3 bedrooms in this subject property. Now, in this same neighborhood, we've got another home. This is our first comparable we're going to introduce here. We're going to call this comp 1. And now I stuck comp 1 up here because it's a higher dollar amount. Comp 1 is worth more than this property. And the reason why is because it's not 3 bedrooms, it's actually 4 bedrooms. So we know based on this aspect of bedrooms that comparable 1 is worth more. So we're going to stick it up here. And the value that we have for comparable 1 is going to be the sale price. That's what we're looking at when we're doing this comparable sales approach. We're looking at the previous sale price of the property. Let's say comparable 1 sold for $400,000, $400,000 comparable 1 sold for. Comparable 2, we're going to look at another one in this neighborhood. In the real world, you're probably going to look at 4, 5, 6, maybe even more comparables. This example, again, oversimplification, just so you kind of start understanding the fundamentals here, we're only going to look at one other property. So we've got 2 comparables here. The second property, this is going to be comparable number 2. This, we know it's lower because it's only 2 bedrooms. So we've got a 2-bedroom, a 3-bedroom, and a 4-bedroom. And again, since this is a comparable, we're looking at its previous sale price. And let's say that this comparable 2 sold for $200,000. So we've got a 2-bedroom home that sold for $200,000. We've got a 3-bedroom home that we don't know the value for. That's what we're trying to find the value for. And we've got a 4-bedroom home that sold for $400,000. Now again, you're probably already able to look at these numbers here, and just by looking at them, not without doing any sort of math or anything like that, or maybe just some quick mental math, you're probably thinking to yourself, the 3-bedroom is $300,000. And if you're thinking that, you already understand this concept. But now let's explain why it is that you're thinking this property is $300,000. What we're doing in the sales comparison approach is we're taking these comps And these comps, because we have a 2-bedroom, a 3-bedroom, and a 4-bedroom, these are 3 completely different properties. Yes, they're in the same neighborhood, and yes, we're assuming that everything else is the same, and this is the only difference it is that we're adjusting for here. But to say a 3-bedroom house is worth the same as a 2-bedroom house, or that a 3-bedroom house is worth the same as a 4-bedroom house, would be inaccurate. So what we're doing here is we're trying to get these comps onto the same level playing field, figuring out what these $2 signs equal to, the about midway point we've got here, and we're trying to put these on the same level. So if this 2-bedroom house had a 3rd bedroom, what it would sell for. And if this 4-bedroom house had one less bedroom, what it would sell for. So ultimately what we're doing here, there's 2 acronyms that go along with this here that'll help you remember this. With this comparable to, since it's an inferior property, we need to adjust it up. Again, we're trying to get everything on that same level playing field. So what we're doing here is bringing up the value. We're adding to the value. We're going to add, and the acronym for this is CIA. So CIA, like the Central Intelligence Agency, although it stands for, in this case, comparable, inferior, add. Our comparable is inferior. It's worse. It's not as nice. It's lower. That's what the inferior is implying there. It's an inferior property compared to our subject. We're comparing everything to the subject. We've got our subject, that's what we're solving for, and we're comparing this comparable and we're comparing that comparable to the subject property. It's not fair to compare a 3-bedroom house to a 2-bedroom house, so we're adding the value of a bedroom. And now the value of the bedroom, we're assuming in this case here, is $100,000. So we're adding that $100,000 to this, and ultimately we come up with a value for our comparable to of $300,000. So if comparable to actually did have 3 bedrooms, we're estimating that it would sell for $300,000. That's what we're doing with this comparable sales approach. Now for comparable 1 over here, we're doing the opposite. This is a better home. This one has 4 bedrooms versus 3 bedrooms, and in real world, as well as your exam, the basic assumption is bigger is pretty much always better. The larger the home is, the more value it is going to have typically. It might be a skewed value, it might not always be as cut and dry as what we're making it out to be in this example here, but bigger would always be better. So since this is bigger, it has that extra bedroom, it's better. So in order to make this fair, because again, it wouldn't be fair to compare a 3-bedroom to a 4-bedroom, what we have to do is bring down this value. And this one has another acronym to help you remember this. It's really 2 sets of acronyms, CIA and CBS. CIA was comparable, inferior, add. CBS, like the television station, is comparable, better, subtract. So when the comparable is better, this comparable is better than our subject property. Again, we're comparing everything to the subject property. Our comparable is better. We're going to subtract. And again, that same value of a 1-bedroom, which is $100,000. So now we get this adjusted value of $300,000. So if this 4-bedroom house really had 3 bedrooms, it would have sold for $300,000. And that's what we're doing with the sales comparison approach. We're looking at these different comparables and either adding or subtracting. And that's the basic fundamental out of all this here. And if you could do this, you could absolutely ace pretty much any question they're throwing at you based on adjustments on the exam. If you really kind of keep in mind, really these acronyms will help you out. CBS, comparable, better, subtract. CIA, comparable, inferior, add. Or if you're more visual, you might prefer to even sketch something like this out on your exam to really kind of understand what the question's asking you. Or this again comes up very often in the real world to understand how we're coming up with a subject property. Those automated valuations models, they're looking at things like probably more so the square footage to kind of make these adjustments and come up with a valuation of the property. But you're able to do this in a much more precise way when you really know how the sausage is being made, or at the very least explaining why the computer's saying this property is $300,000. So that's our very basic fundamental out of all this there. Comparable, inferior, add. Comparable, better, subtract. But now the thing is, it's not always going to be just one thing that's different about a property. This property might not be better in every single way. Maybe this property has a pool and this one doesn't have a pool. That would actually make our subject property better in that case. So what you'd have to do here, and we're going to really look at this example, this same kind of like number line, but we're going to factor in two differences across this one comparable. And there might even be more differences. So the key thing we're trying to understand is what adjustments need to be made. So we've got our number line again. High dollar value, low dollar value. We're going to stick our subject in the middle because we're allowing wiggle room. Really, our subject, we're always going to put it in the middle, unless it is the best property in the entire neighborhood, and even then you can just put all of your comparables down here below it. So you put it right there in the middle always. It'll make it nice and easy for you. That's our subject. That's what we're trying to find the value for. Now, let's say we're just looking at that one comparable. One comparable, but we're looking at the different aspects of this comparable. Everything else we're going to be drawing in reference to this is based on the comparable. And let's say, again, we'll use that example that our subject has a swimming pool. So we've got our little swimming pool here in the backyard of our subject property. Forgive my drawing here. So that's a pool. Let's just label that pool. I think it'll make the point a little bit better. So we've got the pool in the backyard. Now, this is where this understanding is really going to help you out in the real world, because pools usually aren't a good investment. Unless you're digging the pool yourself, not even using heavy machinery, you're in there with a shovel digging the pool yourself and you're doing a good job putting that pool in, that's maybe the only time you're going to get any return on investment, or at least not be underwater with your pool. Your pool's going to make you underwater. Because what happens with a pool? This pool might cost $50,000 to put in on this property, but maybe it's adding another $20,000 in value. That's what we call an over improvement. Pools, probably the primest example of an over improvement, because these are expensive to put in. Even for the cheaper pools, like the fiberglass ones, at least I think the fiberglass right now is still cheaper to do than the cement pools. But even if you're doing something a little bit more less costly, you're still usually spending more money than you're going to get back on your return on investment. Unless you're just putting in a bare bones basic pool and you're getting a great price to put it in, it's probably not going to kick up much more, because even in best case scenario, you're looking at maybe another $25,000 that you're adding to the value of a property with a pool. Now, this could vary based on the market and the property that you're looking at, but it's going to be hard to find a property that jumps up more than $25,000 due to a pool. In a lot of cases, it's actually less than that. The value actually jumps up as well. And mainly because there's a lot of maintenance with that. Pools are great, but people aren't always too excited about the maintenance that goes along with a pool. So we've got this property with the pool, and now we're looking at the same comparable because we're just trying to pick out what those adjustments are. So we've got the same comparable, but we've got two things we're going to compare on. We're going to compare on the fact of no pool in our comparable, so that makes it inferior, but we're going to say again it still has that extra bedroom. So we're looking at the same comparable, but we're marking it up on this little graph here twice, because we're going to make a separate adjustment for each item. The fact that our comparable does not have a pool and our subject has a pool, we're trying to find the value of our subject property. So if we're going to compare this to another property, we have to factor in the increase that we're getting from having a pool. Let's say it's the best case scenario, we're getting an increase here of $25,000 from the pool. And who knows, maybe the pool will increase more than that in your particular scenario, but that's typically the most you're going to get out of a pool. So we've got to add $25,000 to the value here. Now over here, for this extra bedroom, we're not adding. Even though it was inferior as it relates with the pool, it's still better, our comparable. Again, we're imagining this is the same comparable. This is comparable 1 in both instances here. But this is now due to the fact that this comparable has an extra bedroom. That now makes the comparable better than our subject property. So in this case now, we're subtracting the value of 1 bedroom, which we'll use that same figure we were using in the last example of $100,000. So overall, we're taking two adjustments. Let's say that the comparable is, and it's based on this extra bedroom one, which we'll use that same number. Let's say the sale price of comparable 1 was $400,000. So we go back in the sales history. You can pull this information pretty easily of what it recently sold for, especially if you have access to the MLS. The Real Assistant makes it very simple to actually pull this information. You go back You look at the previous sales of these different homes in there, and you can see, okay, this home sold for $400,000. You could also find information about it, and especially if it was a recent listing, you could find very detailed information about it from the past listing in the MLS. So it sold for $400,000, but that's not a good indicator of our subject property because we have to do two adjustments. We have to subtract $100,000 for our extra bedroom. So we're subtracting $100,000 for the extra bedroom. But now for this same property, we're going to be adding for the pool because as it relates to the bedroom, it's comparable, better, subtract, but as it relates with the pool, it's comparable, inferior, add. The comparable is better because of the bedroom, it's inferior because of the pool, because it does not have a pool. This one has a pool, this one does not have a pool, comparable one, so we need to add the value of the pool. So the pool is going to kick us up $25,000. So overall, we're really only subtracting $75,000 because we're adding $25,000, but we're subtracting $100,000. So when we do those calculations, $400,000 minus $100,000, we're at $300,000, but then we have to add the extra $25,000 in. We're ultimately going to end up with, and this is called the adjusted value. This was our sale price. The adjusted value for this property, when we subtract $100,000 and add $25,000, is going to be $325,000. Now, based on two aspects that we're looking at here, the pool and the bedrooms, that's what this home would have sold like if it were similar to our subject property. Now, in rare instances, you won't have to make any adjustments because the properties are going to be very similar. There might be things that are different, maybe the paint color or something very basic like that, but nothing that significantly changes the value compared to a comparable. But again, that's a rare scenario. Even when you're in these cookie cutter, builder subdivisions where all the homes look very similar to them, there's going to be differences. There's going to be things like a 4-bedroom versus a 3-bedroom. There's going to be like one having a pool and one not having a pool. So very common that you need to make these adjustments. And especially if you're doing this manually, you're going to really impress your clients when you show, okay, this is how we're coming up with the value. They're understanding this value. And that's very important, especially if this 3-bedroom one is like, oh, well, they don't have a pool, so it should be equal, right? It should be worth about the same. And that's where you could go through and explain this, do a rough calculation here and say, okay, yeah, based on this, if that home were like yours, it would have sold for $325,000 instead of the $400,000 that it did sell for. And that's a tough conversation it is that you'd have to have with a seller, especially if this is their home, they're proud of that home, and they really want to get top dollar for the home, and they don't want to be cheated on the sale of their property. If you're just telling them this is what the computer says it's worth, or this is my calculation, and you're not explaining how it is that you came up with that, some people you might not need to explain it, and they'll just trust for you for what it is that you say. But a lot of people are going to at least want to know the basics here. They might cut you off and say, okay, I believe you here. Let's just do $325,000. But a lot of people are going to want to know, especially for coming up with a value. That's a very important topic of discussion when thinking about selling a home is what will we sell it for? What can it sell for? Or what should we list it for to sell it quickly? Those are all things you have to take into account when you're trying to come up with the appropriate value for a property. So that's looking at two different features on a property to come up with an adjusted value. Now we're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to be talking more about comps. I'm going to touch on reconciliation a little bit, how we could come up with a weighted average across these different properties if we're looking at multiple comparables here. So stick with us. I'm John Crismo. You're watching Ask the Instructor.
Have you been thinking about starting a career in real estate? Enjoy an entrepreneurial lifestyle that allows for schedule flexibility with unlimited income potential. In real estate, the sky is the limit, and what you put in is what you get out. Learn more about a career in real estate at tampaschool.com. Do you wish you could make your own schedule? A career in real estate allows for unimaginable schedule flexibility. Whether you're just looking to make some extra cash in your spare time or become the next top real estate agent, a career in real estate allows you to call the shots. Find out more about a career in real estate at tampaschool.com. Do you want to incorporate studying for your real estate exams into your busy schedule? Now you can review the key topics you need to know to pass your class and state exams with our MP3 audio review. Simply pop in your headphones or connect to your car to reinforce crucial information while you exercise or drive. Listen to the first unit for free at mp3audioreview.com. That's mp3audioreview.com. Does your current career allow for unlimited income potential? With a career in real estate, the sky is the limit. What you put in is what you get out. Find out more about how you can tap into the unlimited income potential of a career in real estate at tampaschool.com.
Hey, if you're liking the show today, which I'm sure you are, make sure you hit like, subscribe, share it with your friends and family. Our goal is to help you better understand the real estate industry, and I hope we're accomplishing that. Thanks for tuning in today, and remember to leave your comments in the comment section below.
You are watching
Ask the Instructor. Every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Time. I'm John Chrismo. You're watching Ask the Instructor. Hey, welcome back to this week's episode of Ask the Instructor. I'm John Chrismo, and the show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. If you're thinking about starting or enhancing your career in real estate, give us a call. Phone number is 813-928-0106. You can even text us. Check us out online at tampaschool.com. That's tampaschool.com. And if you're looking for a recommended strategy to help you pass your class and state exams on your first try, that's going to be at passfirsttry.com. Or just watch a bunch of these videos, because these videos are really great for breaking down complex topics like this, and everything we've really talked about so far, at least what we've done on the board, very likely to show up on your exams, because these are almost just like questions that you're going to see on there. And if you could solve the stuff like this, don't worry about what the numbers are, because these numbers are going to be given to you, but you do need to understand. In the real world, you'll have to kind of estimate some of these values here, estimate the 25,000, the 100,000. On your exam, those numbers are going to be given to you, but you're going to need to know how to work with them, whether you're adding or subtracting from the value. And it's a pretty simple concept when it's explained correctly, and when you understand what it is that you're doing here, that you're adding and subtracting based on whether it's better, you're subtracting; when it's inferior, you're adding. Remember CBS and CIA. If you keep that in mind, this is pretty simple. This is easy points to rack up on your exam. So let's now further complicate this. Let's say we've got three things that are different across the home. So we're just looking at one comparable, and really you're looking at one comparable at a time. You're going to overall look at multiple comparables and then put them all together at the end through what's called reconciliation. We're going to touch on how to do that in the last few minutes of the show here. So let's say we've got three things that are different. So we've got high dollar value, low dollar value. We've got our subject property laid out kind of, right here in the middle. And we're trying to get everything on the same level playing field as our subject property. And in order to do that, we have to make adjustments. So this is what we're trying to find the value for. Now we've got a comparable that we're going to say has three things that are different about it. So these three things are, it has a, see, can we put it up there? We've got a better location. And that better location, let's say that that's valued at $50,000. And this is all we're talking about the comp now. The comp has a better location, that's $50,000. Let's say that it also has an extra car garage, so it's got, and let's say that's worth about $10,000. And let's just say also that the home's in better condition. And this is where it gets a little, and on your exam, again, these numbers will be given to you. For any numbers, it's not subjective in the way that it's asking you to estimate these numbers. That's not what they're testing you on. They're testing on how you work with these numbers. So on the exam, it would give you information like this. But in the real world, you might be presented with two different properties. Let's say our subject property is immaculate. Our subject property is immaculate. It's perfect. If somebody walked in there, it'd be hard to say that they don't like the property. It might not be the property for them, but they would walk in there and say, wow, this is a beautiful home. Whereas our comparable property, let's say this comparable property is in bad shape. It's in bad shape, it's not clean. It's got weird smells on the inside, all kinds of things, and this is where we have our big discrepancies between what you're going to find in these automated valuation models and what you're doing when you're actually working the math on this here. So let's say that the condition, it's in bad condition. I don't know if you're able to see that high up. The condition is bad, and that bad condition, let's say, contributes to about $80,000. So ultimately, we've got three different things that we're looking at here. Our comparable has a better location. That better location is worth about $50,000. It has an extra car garage. Maybe this one's 2 car and that one's 3 car. So the extra car garage is worth about $10,000, but the condition is bad. So what we're looking at here across these three different ones, and let's erase this comps thing here so I got a little more room to write in. So for the better location, remember CBS, comparable, better, subtract. So really what we're going to be doing is subtracting this $50,000. The extra car garage, we're valuing at $10,000. Again, having the extra car, bigger is always better. So that's another one where we're going to be subtracting the value. But now for the condition, yes, the condition is bad. Yes, our comparable is inferior. But when comparable is inferior, that's a good thing for our subject property. Because when the comparable is inferior, we're bringing up the value. So yeah, let's say that the home sold for $500,000, but it's a better location, so we got to take $50,000 off. It's got an extra car garage, so we've got to take $10,000 off, but it's in bad condition. And that's going to bode well for our subject property because that's going to help push the property value up because this comparable is something that we're able to actually add to. Remember, this one is CIA. Our comparable is inferior because it's in bad condition, so we're adding in that case. For the extra car, our comparable is better, so we're subtracting. And for the better location, again, it's using better right in the word right there, so that makes it real easy. Comparable, better, subtract. So another way to do this, and I definitely recommend thinking about this visually as well. Even if you don't draw something like this out when you're actually trying to do these figures, it might even help just to draw a little sketch. You don't have to draw the houses like this, but just writing in what these things are that we're going to be adjusting for. So we've got better location. That's going to be where we're subtracting, so let's figure in location. We're going down 50,000. For our extra car garage, we're going down to the tune of about 10,000. And then finally, for our bad condition, we're going up by $80,000. So we've got these three different things we're working off of here: the location, the extra car, and the condition. These three things are all about the comparable. Everything we're talking about in terms of the comparable. Our subject property is what we're solving for, so our subject property, that's the standard. This is what we're trying to get everything. We're trying to standardize everything to make it similar. Now, there's two types of things that you're going to want to know. Really, one leads to the ultimate question of the other, and that's number one, what's the total net adjustment that we're going to be making? What are the total of these adjustments? And really, that's just a matter of taking 80,000, subtracting 10,000, and subtracting 20,000. That's how much adjustment it is we're going to make. And then finally, finding the adjusted value, which we then take the sale price and subtract that out. So let's go ahead and do the quick calculations on this here. So to find our net adjustment, we're going to take the $80,000 positive. So we're starting out, we're going to put in our calculator $80,000. We're going to subtract, and that was for the condition. We're going to subtract the $50,000 for the location, because then remember that was a better subtract. So that's our location. And then we're also subtracting the $10,000 for the garage. So ultimately, we've got 80,000 minus 50 minus 10, aka 80,000 minus 60,000. So ultimately, our net adjustment is going to be plus $20,000. So when we take this comparable sale, let's say this comparable sold for, and I'll put that down here. And what we're finding in this case is called the adjusted value. So in order to find the adjusted value, we're taking the sale price, which again we'll say is $500,000. And remember, this is the comparable adjusted value. So what we're doing is finding out, yes, it did sell for $500,000, but is that an indicator of our subject property? And the answer is no, because we had these adjustments we had to make, because our subject was not. This was a very different property. It had a better location, it had an extra car garage, and it was in terrible condition. So those things are definitely going to influence that value. So we've got our sale price. That's our starting number. That's our data point. But we need to make adjustments on that. And now a good rule of thumb with this when you're doing this in the real world is the more adjustments you have to make, the more likely for human error. It doesn't matter how long it is that you've been doing this, even some of the best appraisers that are out there, because this is the same one of the methods that appraisers use when coming up with value for a property. And the whole part of appraisal, or anytime you're coming up with an estimate of value, is it's exactly that. It's an estimate of the value. It's not an indicator. It's not what the value is. There's really no for sure way of ever knowing what the exact value ever is on a property. You know what the price is on the property, what it's sold for, how much it cost, but the value can be a little subjective based on who it is that you're talking to. Now, you could be very close, or at least for the scenario of what we're dealing with here, but it's always just an estimate of the value, or professional opinion of the value, or whatever it is that we're going to call it here. So what we're doing essentially is just now taking that $20,000 adjustment and really our property should sell for $20,000 more is what we're coming up with. So based on this valuation method here, our adjusted value is $520,000. The reason why we're coming up with $520,000, again, the comparable sold for $500,000, but we're making three separate adjustments. We're taking that $500,000, then we're subtracting $50,000, then we're subtracting $10,000, but then we're adding $80,000 back in for these three different adjustments. So even though this comparable property had a better location and had the extra car garage, it's this condition that's contributing to about $80,000 worth of the value that's really kind of making it ultimately good for our subject property. And it's making our subject property worth even more because of that. So that's basically making these adjustments. And if you're able to do this, you'll notice that this doesn't seem much difficult than the last two examples we had. But that's because you understand these fundamentals. When it's better, we're subtracting. When it's inferior, we're adding. If you know that, not only will that set you up for success on the exams, but also in the real world when you're trying to understand the value of a property. Whether you're advising a client or whether you're working with an investor, this is a crucial skill to have, even if you're using a very accurate method. The realist system is really nice because it's going to give you an estimated value, but then on top of that, it's also going to estimate a range of values. And that range of values is also very helpful to understand, okay, if we want to sell quickly, we want to be on the low end. If we want to maybe take a little bit more time, try to get the most money we can, that's where we'll maybe push it a little bit more on the high end for that. But it's got confidence scores. Anything, if you're into statistics, that's a really powerful system to understand the value. But even then, it's still an automated valuation model. And this, especially when you have a property that had a bad condition. And this is where you want to go back through MLS listings of the comparable sales and look at the pictures, look at the condition, look at how long it was on the market for, to get a better indicator of, okay, yeah, this property, it was in terrible shape. If we're in better shape, it would have sold for a lot more. And that's something the computers haven't quite cracked the code. It's very hard to quantify that $80,000. And even for as a person there, you could have a lot of experience in appraising properties or estimating value for property or whatever it is that your role is. You could have been doing this for years, but that number, that difference there, that's a hard number to exactly put an exact point on. Okay, $80,000 is what that condition is worth on the property. And yes, there is the tax assessor that goes to the neighborhood and looks at these properties, or maybe goes on Google Street View, or who knows how it is in your county that they're coming up with this information for the public records here. But they might have an idea on the exterior of the property. But when you have a home that looks great on the outside, but it's a mess on the inside, that's our biggest opportunity to have errors and discrepancies in these automated valuation methods, which again is why it's so important to understand this process and how it works. Now, ultimately, this is for one property, but if you're really doing this out fully blown manually on your own, you're going to do this across multiple properties. You really don't want to rely on any single one point of data for coming up with an estimate of value. You're usually, again, looking at 4, 5, 6, maybe even 7 or 8 different comparables in the neighborhood to understand what the value is of that property. There's 2 more things we're going to be talking about: the principle of substitution and reconciliation, which are it's the icing on the cake for coming up with an accurate estimate of value using comparables. And we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to cover principle of substitution and reconciliation. So stick with us. I'm John Chrismo. You're watching Ask the Instructor.
Have you been thinking about starting a career in real estate? Enjoy an entrepreneurial lifestyle that allows for schedule flexibility with unlimited income potential. In real estate, the sky is the limit, and what you put in is what you get out. Learn more about a career in real estate at tampaschool.com. Do you wish you could make your own schedule? A career in real estate allows for unimaginable schedule flexibility. Whether you're just looking to make some extra cash in your spare time or become the next top real estate agent, a career in real estate allows you to call the shots. Find out more about a career in real estate at tampaschool.com. Do you want to incorporate studying for your real estate exams into your busy schedule? Now you can review the key topics you need to know to pass your class and state exams with our MP3 audio review. Simply pop in your headphones or connect to your car to reinforce crucial information while you exercise or drive. Listen to the first unit for free at mp3audioreview.com. That's mp3audioreview.com. Does your current career allow for unlimited income potential? With a career in real estate, the sky is the limit. What you put in is what you get out. Find out more about how you can tap into the unlimited income potential of a career in real estate at tampaschool.com.
Hey, if you're liking the show today, which I'm sure you are, make sure you hit like, subscribe, share it with your friends and family. Our goal is to help you better understand the real estate industry, and I hope we're accomplishing that. Thanks for tuning in today, and remember to leave your comments in the comment section below.
You are watching
Ask the Instructor. Every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Time. I'm John Chrismo. You're watching Ask the Instructor. Hey, welcome back to this week's episode of Ask the Instructor. I'm John Chrismo, and this show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. Rather than doing our usual plugs when we come back from commercial, let me tell you why we do this episode, or this show, every webinar, podcast, whatever it is you want to call it. I don't care what you call it. Just tune in every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Time. The reason why we do this, and the reason why we started this back last year, we've been doing this now for quite some time, and we keep doing it because it's really not only been helping our past students, but it's been really popular with people even just thinking about getting a career in real estate, understanding some of the stuff, getting to know what they're getting into before they get into the course. So the reason why we do this episode is to really kind of go into detail and go in depth, and we started this to help go above and beyond for our students. So when they want an extra hour on understanding comparable sales and the comparable sales approach and how to work with comps and how to adjust values and things like that, that we do that every week. And we got a question that came in from Ume Khan. So Ume Khan over on YouTube sent in the question asking about interest. For the sake of time, we don't have much time today to go in full detail on that interest, but next week I promise you we'll do an episode on interest to cover that a little bit more. It looks like you're asking maybe about simple interest, so we'll talk about that next week on next week's episode of Ask the Instructor. Now, what it is that I want to touch on today, or finish up touching on today with this comparable sales approach, really kind of tie this up for the last bits and pieces it is that you need to know here, because we covered on how to work with these comparables, how to make the adjustments, the comparable better subtract, the comparable inferior add. But now, what we need to keep in mind few more things. Kind of wrote a lot on this last example here. So first one is called the principle of substitution. So principle of substitution says, we've got this street here, and maybe we've got these 5 homes here. This is your home for sale, and there's another home just like yours also for sale. So these 2 homes are very similar. This is your home. This is your neighbor's home. And this home is for sale for $400,000. And between these two, there's nothing of value that really makes that much of a difference. Maybe your pool's a little bit bigger. Maybe your bedrooms are a little bit bigger. Maybe you have hardwood floors, whereas they have laminate or something like that. Where, I mean, these are absolutely things as a homeowner, you're spending extra money to be the best. But this principle of substitution says, if a buyer walks into these 2 homes and they don't see anything significantly different, this is the cap on how much you could sell your property for. So sometimes it's the principle of substitution that just makes this process real easy, at least for understanding what that top point is, that we're not going to be able to surpass this. Because if these 2 homes are very similar, there's really not much you could do to try to sell it for more than $400,000. Because let's say your similar property, and maybe, again, there could be things that are different. Maybe there's nicer paint colors. Maybe the landscaping's a little bit better, but just very minor things. And when they see these 2 homes, the buyer doesn't really see a significant difference. And if you're asking for $450 and they're asking for $400, maybe it's the same floor plan in a model home type of neighborhood where there's lots of homes that are similar. Why would they pay an extra $50,000 for you when they could go down the street and get that home for $400,000? That's what's called the principle of substitution. Very important to understand and be able to communicate that effectively. Because maybe you're not the owner of this property, but you're the realtor that was called in to help sell this property. And they're saying, oh, well, our pool's better. I've been over to their house. Their pool, it's not even clean. And those things maybe will help the property sell faster. But unless there's something significantly different, and it's going to depend on your market what really dictates something significantly different. Also depends on the buyer that's coming in there, but if it's just a little bit larger pool, a little bit better paint colors, a little bit nicer floor, the whole, that keyword, a little bit, these are maybe things that they spent a lot of it altogether. They might have spent an extra $50,000 altogether compared to what they've spent in improvements on their property. But if they're similar homes, the principle of substitution says that's our cap. That kind of goes back to the rule of thumb that you don't want to have the nicest home in the neighborhood. If you have the nicest home in the neighborhood, you're kind of subject to this here, to these other homes that are selling for less because they're not as nice, but they're basically the same thing to average type of buyer. So that's called the principle of substitution. Very important that you keep in mind. If it comes up on your exam at all, probably a pretty basic question. If the home for sale down the street is for $400,000 and it's very similar, the principle of substitution says you probably won't be able to sell your home for more than what, and that's $400,000. I don't even think that'd be a question just because it is very point blank and pretty dry there, but very important to know in the real world and be able to effectively explain that to your clients, saying, hey, if you're a buyer, and really just put it in the shoes of the buyer. If you're a buyer and that home down the street, yes, this is nicer. That'll probably help us sell quicker, but they're probably not going to pay much more, if any more, than what that home down the street is selling for. And so when you have that competition, the principle of substitution is very important to be able to fully explain to your client. Now, the other thing that you need to know is called reconciliation. Now, when we were going through and doing these adjustments earlier in the show, when we're doing those adjustments, I mentioned that this is an estimate of value. And the more adjustments you make, even as the greatest professional in the world, the more adjustments it is that you make, the more likely there's going to be some human error. That maybe it's not an $80,000 bump, it's a $60,000 bump, or a $50,000 bump, or these numbers aren't exactly right. On your exams, these numbers are going to be given to you. So you don't have to worry about estimating value of a pool or anything like that. They give you these numbers, they just want you to know how to work with them. But in the real world, you don't have an exam in front of you that's saying, okay, the pool is worth $25,000. It's up to your professional judgment when you're coming up with value to what that pool actually adds to the value of the property. And that comes down to really knowing the market it is that you're listing this property. And that's kind of the importance of having the farm area. Not only that you could market to it, but that you could also focus on understanding the value. So real quick, I just want to cover reconciliation here. So reconciliation, and this won't take long at all because this is very simple. So with reconciliation, what we have is 3 different properties. 3 different comparables that we adjusted. And we came up with 3 different values. Let's say for comparable 1, we came up with a value of $500,000. For comparable 2, we came up with $450,000. And for comparable 3, we came up with $475,000. Now, us looking at the numbers here, we're like, yeah, comparable 3, that's really the most like our property. We had to make the least amount of adjustments. This is the one I would probably just say $475,000. But again, to have a little bit of method to your madness of here, not just picking $475,000, what you can do is reconcile these numbers, aka weighting these numbers. We're not just coming up with a basic average. Because you could do that. You could come up with a basic average, $450,000 plus $475,000 plus $500,000 divided by 3. You're probably going to end up with $475,000. I don't have a calculator in front of me, but you should end up right about $475,000 when you do that math. Now, finding a weighted average is a little bit different because you're saying, yes, this is the best indicator of value, but we don't want to ignore comparable 1 and comparable 2. So what you could do is assign percentages. Now the key thing here is these have to add up to 100%. So these have to add up to 100%, but you could say, okay, this one I want to do 50% because it's very much like our subject property. For comparable 2, that's, this one's the next best one, so we'll put that at 30%. And then comparable 1, least like our subject property, so we'll put this one at 20%. So what you're doing here, the reason why you're picking these numbers, and this is up to your professional judgment in the real world. On the exam, it'll give you these numbers. In the real world, it's your professional judgment. The key thing is across the different comparables, it can't add up to be more than 100% because then this system doesn't work. Because what you're doing is taking the 100% value you're going to come up with, taking 50% from here, 30% from here, and 20% from there. So really the math is very basic with this. You're just kind of multiplying across for each one of these. So 500,000 times 20%, you're going to end up with 100,000. 475,000, I don't want to embarrass myself here and with mental math. First one, no problem. These next ones I could probably do, but the pressure, all the other people watching me. 450,000 times 0.3, $135,000. So we've got $135,000 contributing to the value here. And finally, for our third comparable, 475,000 times 0.5 gives us $237,500. Now, real quick word of advice here. Just like I don't want to embarrass myself by doing this math wrong on our live little broadcast here, you don't want to embarrass yourself and do this math wrong either on your exam or in front of a client. So use your calculator. You've got one on your phone for a reason. It's a quick access in your apps for a reason. If you could do great mental math, great, but even the best mental mathematicians fall victim to some stuff sometimes. So we've got these 3 numbers we're going to be adding together here now ultimately. We're just combining those 3 circles. We've got our 100,000, our 135,000, and our 237,500. So when we add those all together, 237,500, 135,000, and 100,000, we end up with 472,500. So what that reconciliation that we just did tells us that, yeah, we were thinking 475, that's the one to go with, but because we're weighting this one pretty heavily, that 450,000, we're giving that 30% weight. That's what's causing that number to dip down. So even though we're giving the most weight to comparable 3, we're still factoring in these other 2 comparables. And if we were only looking at these 2 comparables, we would actually end up with a lower number than 472,000 because comparable 1 is actually bumping that up. That's the way this weighted average kind of works out for you here. And the key thing with this in the real world is you're using these percentages to identify which properties are most like the subject property and least like the subject property, that you want most contributing to your ultimate value and least contributing to your ultimate value. So the higher the percentage, the more weight, the more that's going to influence this main number. That's why we're so close to comparable 3, is because we assign the most weight there. This one that one we're the farthest away from, and it worked out perfectly with the math with this one because we assigned the lowest weight to that comparable there. So this is really powerful because even though we were saying 475,000, that quick math we just did there says, okay, maybe 475 is a little high, let's do 472,500, maybe even go a little bit lower than that if you're trying to get a fast sale out of the property, But that's everything I got for you guys today on working with comparables. So I know we went a little bit over. I know we went a little bit longer than the hour here. We're sitting about an hour, 5 minutes now. But the reason why I didn't want to cut you guys off and leave you hanging with not getting into the full details of the reconciliation, because if you're out there doing this in the real world, you don't want to just take a basic average. Yes, you can do that, and you might get lucky and get the value correct. But this reconciliation really puts a little bit more science and statistics behind these numbers for coming up with an appropriate estimate of value. So definitely make sure you understand this reconciliation. Doing this math, they'll give you the numbers, but being able to do this math very likely to show up on your exam, so make sure you know that. But other than that, that's all I've got for you guys today. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure you're liking and subscribing, sharing it with your friends. That's what kind of keeps us on the air here, keeps the lights on, help getting the word out about real estate, and helping us help people. Because whenever we go back and see the comments, we see the likes, we see our subscribes going up, that really means a lot to us. It shows us that we're here to help our students, which is ultimately what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to help our students be the most successful. We want Tampa School of Real Estate students to be the best agents in the world, because that says a little something about us. So make sure you're tuning in every Wednesday, 12 noon Eastern time. We do Ask the Instructor. Fridays at 12 noon Eastern time, we do what's called State of Real Estate. That's more so a mastermind where we're either bringing in professional guests from people out in the industry that can offer you great insights, or maybe it's just me up here giving you some stuff to kind of help focus on one thing, like managing your database or how to effectively do an open house, or all kinds of topics like this. We've done a lot of great episodes so far, not only on Ask the Instructor, but on State of Real Estate. You could access every single one of those completely free of charge, whether you're a student or not. We're actually probably going to be cutting it off where people that aren't students of the Tampa School of Real Estate can't access the archives, but we haven't done that quite yet. So before we do any major changes like that, go to tampaschool.com/success. It's tampaschool.com/success. You can access the archive of all of our past videos for Ask the Instructor and State of Real Estate and really learn quite a bit, because there's a lot of knowledge to be gained on these shows that we do on Wednesdays and Fridays at 12 noon Eastern time. But until next week, or if you're going to tune on Friday, I will see you then. Remember, 12 noon Eastern time. Subscribe at tampaschool.com/success. Thanks for tuning in today, and good luck out there.
Have you been thinking about starting a career in real estate? Enjoy an entrepreneurial lifestyle that allows for schedule flexibility with unlimited income potential. In real estate, the sky is the limit, and what you put in is what you get out. Learn more about a career in real estate at tampaschool.com. Do you wish you could make your own schedule? A career in real estate allows for unimaginable schedule flexibility. Whether you're just looking to make some extra cash in your spare time or become the next top real estate agent, a career in real estate allows you to call the shots. Find out more about a career in real estate at tampaschool.com. Do you want to incorporate studying for your real estate exams into your busy schedule? Now you can review the key topics you need to know to pass your class and state exams with our MP3 audio review. Simply pop in your headphones or connect to your car to reinforce crucial information while you exercise or drive. Listen to the first unit for free at mp3audioreview.com. That's mp3audioreview.com. Does your current career allow for unlimited income potential? With a career in real estate, the sky is the limit. What you put in is what you get out. Find out more about how you can tap into the unlimited income potential of a career in real estate at tampaschool.com.
Hey, if you're liking the show today, which I'm sure you are, make sure you hit like, subscribe, share it with your friends and family. Our goal is to help you better understand the real estate industry, and I hope we're accomplishing that. Thanks for tuning in today, and remember to leave your comments in the comment section below.
You are watching
Ask the Instructor. Every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Time. I'm John Chrismo. You're watching Ask the Instructor.